All right. I'm Mark Danowski, editor-in-chief and founder, I suppose, of One Art, a Journal of Poetry, here with Kolby Granville of After Dinner Conversation. And I'm excited to have this discussion. Both Kobe and I take issue with gatekeeping in the literary community, and that's part of the reason why we're having this conversation in the first place. We're definitely not trying to sell anyone anything. We're going to do our best here to share useful information about how literary magazines can grow a Substack newsletter. I have prepared questions, though there's a good chance that we'll go down some unexpected rabbit holes, and
Hmm.
I expect this will likely be on me to some extent because of my propensity to do so, but to be determined. Um, Kobe, you pointed out that there's a bunch of Substackers that essentially give the same bullshit pitch. In your
Yes.
words, it's a bit like step one, find a sucker, and step two, tell them to find a sucker. And
Yes.
that's the same sort of shit that I've seen, and it's super frustrating. We all are aware of the sort of like Herbalife, Cutco knives, Tupperware kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
we have all that stuff by now. But my serious thought there was that we don't really need more fakey MLM type scams in our lives. And, we all are spending a lot of bandwidth just trying to cut through the noise of the flooded zone that we live in with misinformation and endless reasons seemingly for fear and hypervigilance. So that's uplifting stuff. And um, but moving along, I know that you crunched some numbers and figured out a bit of a system that, at least for now, seems to work for after dinner conversation to thrive. And I thought maybe, I don't know, you tell me if after you tell us about after dinner conversation and what you guys do, if like that post is a good place to start where you did sort of, I want to say it's like an end of year recap, the end of year summary, where you sort of break down like what you guys are trying to do and like what you figured out.
Yeah. So first off, I agree with you that, when you look at people that are sort of Substack experts and you ask them like, they're like, I grew a Substack that makes me $30,000 a year or whatever.
Yes, please. Yeah.
And you're like, great, how'd you do it? You're like, well, I started this program teaching people how to do Substacks and make $30,000 a year. And I'm like, so the only thing you've successfully sold is selling other people on how to do Substacks. It's like,
Right.
yeah, it's like, but do you have a product? Do you have a thing? Do you like, no, but I've got a course that I'm selling. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Oh, of course, the
okay,
seminar grift.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it's very much a sort of like a greater fool theory, right? Like the way to get rich is to find someone dumber than you that's willing to buy something from you.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like it just drove me nuts. And so I'm a part of, some Reddit threads for Substack and other places. And after a couple of years being on there, I've seen there's really just two kinds of posts. I'm new to Substack. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm a Substack expert. I will sell you a way to become rich on Substack.
I've seen
Um,
those on Reddit too. Yeah.
right. And then once in a while you'll get someone who gives the sort of same blanket response all the time, which is like, oh, you should be on active on notes and you should
Hmm.
engage with other people that are in similar areas as you, but don't ask them for stuff. And just like over time, as you become integrated into the community, you'll naturally grow. Uh, and that's sort of the best advice anyone has. Oh, the other advice that they have, which I think is more of a cop out than advice, is they'll say like the only people who can make money on Substack are the ones who are carrying over an audience already. So they import a bunch of people and they carry
Right.
over an audience, and that's why they're successful. And that solves them from like responsibility because it's like, oh, the thing that I need, I don't have, therefore it's not my fault that I didn't grow my Substack, right? Like I
Right.
didn't have
Like,
the like Dumbo's feather.
yeah, exactly. If I was a Nepo baby, if I had a trust fund, then I
Right,
would already be here. Yeah.
right. And it's like, well, where did all those people get that? Where did they get their group that carried over from? Like they got
Hmm.
it from doing work, like day
Sure.
after day and just grinding it out, man. But nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear that there's like an answer. And if I only knew the answer, like it would all be fine, and someone's somehow withholding the answer,
You
and it's
know,
like, yeah,
this
you're killing
reminds me,
me.
just sorry to cut you off
Yeah,
there,
jump
but
in.
it reminds me of a few people have said to me about how like literary magazines and presses really covet and are protective of their email list that they
Yeah.
have. And when I was told this, I was sort of like, wait, what? Like, because it had never really occurred to me to leverage the list of emails of people that have engaged with me in some way because that seems coercive. Like they
Yeah.
didn't give me that
Well, and now
email
illegal
address.
too.
Hmm.
Now it's illegal to sort of trade or sell email addresses. As
I
of like
mean, you mean
three to
in like
five
a
years ago.
direct sense or
Yeah, so like if I said, "Hey, I'll give you 5,000 of my email addresses if you give me 5,000 of yours," like we've just broken the law now.
oh, I'm glad that's illegal. I mean, that
Yeah,
absolutely should be
agreed.
illegal.
It
And
right.
I've heard though, actually, like on an unrelated kind of thing, that's like kind of I think that's common in like the influencer community.
Yeah,
Um,
it can be.
yeah.
But there are legal ways you can do it. Like I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying do it in ways that are useful. So
Sure, sure. Yeah, I mean,
and like ethical, right?
right, right. Like, I have, yeah, had a couple discussions. I think it's fair to be open about this, where like I really wanted to get in touch with a couple people who I was interested in talking to about like either running a workshop for one art or reading
Mhm.
for one art. And I asked, one or two people that I expected would have the email address of this person, and they're like, I set a personal policy at one point of just that I'm not going to give out email addresses. And I was like, you know what? I totally respect that. I shouldn't have asked in the first place. But then there's the trickery of like, how do you get to certain people? Next level, if someone's kind of
I can tell
agented,
you
then you
I can
can't
tell you
get
how
to
to
them.
do that. It's not hard. So there are services online that you can pay for. So like let's say I'm at a mixer and someone hands me a business card. I can literally go to a website with when I have an account and I can enter their information from their business card and that will like basically get me a credit on that account.
Hmm.
And then for every like 5 credits I get, then I get 1 credit. So like if I upload 5 business cards that I have of just any random people, then I can now go and find one person's information and download it. Or I can pay you know, or I can pay like $20 an email address to do it. And so if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I really want to get a hold of this person I've done this for jobs where I've been
Really?
like, oh, I really want to talk, I want to send an email directly to the HR person or the vice
Yeah, like their
president of the
hiring
department,
manager.
the
Yeah.
hiring manager for that department or the person. I'll just be like, yeah, I want your email address. So I'm going to go to this
Huh.
website. I'm going to get their email address. I'm going to email them and be like, hey, I've applied for this job. It's probably sitting with HR, but I wanted to reach out to you directly. I hope this isn't offensive. Like, I feel like I'm a good fit for this job and I want to make sure that my resume is in front of a decision maker. I've absolutely done that. And
That's
every time I've
interesting.
done
Huh.
it, people have been super nice about it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should know more tricks than I do, although I don't have the access that I once did. But when I years ago when I worked for a private detective agency for about a decade, we had our ways of sort of like
Oh, for sure.
going through back channels to get information about subjects that were under investigation. But that's like
Yeah, it's
having,
a thing.
that's a different thing
Yeah.
altogether.
So do you want to talk about how to grow Substack? How do you want to do
So
this?
that's a good question. Is the sort of where do we even begin? So I mean, maybe let's talk a little bit about like what the deal is with Substack,
Okay.
and what nudged you towards getting after dinner conversation on Substack, and maybe like in tandem with that,
Mhm.
why did this seem like a wise move? Why Substack versus other platforms?
Yeah,
Medium. I don't even know how to say. What Beehive? Is that how you say
I
it?
think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So the reason we ended up on it is because when we send an author, we only publish short story literary fiction with a focus on sort of ethical and philosophical short fiction. So I basically tell people, like, imagine if Kurt Vonnegut wrote The Trolley Problem as a short story.
Amazing.
That's what we would publish.
It's
Or
a
the,
great elevator pitch.
yeah, or the Socrates the cave, right? Socrates' cave, Plato's
Sure.
cave. Like if that was written as a short story from the perspective of someone in the cave trying to escape, that's what we would publish. And then our stories come with discussion questions. When we work with authors, I send them an agreement which is very R-sided. And if an author tells me like, "Hey, I don't want to sign this," I'd be like, "Yeah, that's cool. Like you shouldn't if you think you can do better." Um, so basically, what I did from the very beginning is I said, "Look, we're going to pay you a flat rate because I don't want to try and figure out royalties. We're going to pay you pretty well for a literary magazine. We pay $75 a short story, but I want to be able to reuse this material under the After Dinner Conversation brand indefinitely. Now, after 3 years, you can email me and just say stop, and I'll stop. I won't use it anymore. But like, I
Yeah.
don't want to have to go back to you if I want to put together a best of, or if I want to put together some sort of like, themed book about AI ethics, and so, we have the right to continue to package them as long as we're doing them under our same brand
Hmm.
without paying the author or even asking them for permission. I should mention I've never had an author come back and say like, "Hey, quit publishing my stuff," because they can now simultaneously publish it somewhere else anyway.
Right.
It's not like we want exclusive rights.
Oh yeah,
And
so it's just the first rights and then it
yeah,
reverts back, but also you want to have this continued
exactly.
rights.
And we'll tell people like, "Hey, publish it elsewhere." Like we're cool with that. We just want to be able to repackage this in a way. And I did that because I just was like, "Look, I got to figure out how to make money, at least not lose money on this endeavor." And I don't know what medium or format that's going to be. I don't know if that's posting it on the website with ads. I don't know if that's going through some app where you buy it by the story. Like I didn't know.
You're smart because so I figured this out the hard way. I had early, maybe like 2 years into one art, I was like, I think it'll be cool to do a 5 year anthology.
Right. But then
And
you have to go
then
back and talk to all the people, and if you don't have permission.
so what I realized, aside from other potential issues, was I was like noticing how people put together anthologies, and I was like, huh, it seems really, really common that what they do is just solicit new material from authors that they want
Mm,
to include. And I realized why that is, which is
right.
they don't want to have to figure out like, did that author maybe republish it in a place that like I'll give an example like Red Hen Press or
Right.
something where if you want to use that poem again, they theoretically want $300 from you. I don't even think it's
Right.
theoretical. I mean like they literally
It is
want
$300,
$300.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's why we write it that way. And I tell authors like, look, like I get it. If this isn't for you, like just say no. Like I'm not offended, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to not have this cost me money, and this is the only model I can think of that will do it.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right team. I think Red Hen, who's the bad actor that's getting thrown under the bus here in this scenario, like I think what they're doing is totally unreasonable. I mean, let's be real, like $300 so that someone can reuse a poem. Sure, there might be a money-making element, but in many cases, this is like educational. It's
Right.
for within the community usage, no one's making like vast sums of money. I feel like it's kind of not
Right.
the intentions are
Nobody's
not
retiring in the
great.
Bahamas on this. Like, so you
Yeah,
might as well, yeah, I agreed.
it seems kind of unnecessarily difficult and
Right. And so that
mean-spirited.
that brings us up to the Substack.
Yeah,
So one of the things that I read years ago that I believe in is that, and this could be a made up theory, but it's not made up that I read it, that the
love
things
it.
that are successful we think are often merit based, and they're often first mover based. So let's say that somebody opens up the first MP3 audio store, and we upload the first 100 songs to that store. They're all fine, they're all of equal quality. But you and I go there, or I go there first, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy songs, 25, 26, and 27. I like the titles, I guess. Okay, whatever. Now you go after me and you go, well, what's popular on that site?
Mm,
Well, song 25, 26, and 27 is sold. That must be pretty good. So
right,
you
right.
buy them for no other reason than the fact that they're at the top of the chart. And then this creates an automatic sorting system where future people go and are like, oh, well, what's selling well? That must be good. And I've seen a lot of research related to music and specifically, but I assumed this applied to writing.
Spotify for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like it becomes this snowball effect. And the person who wrote, 20 song 24, 25, and 26, they think they're the best artists on there. But in actuality, it might just simply be this snowball effect of like people continuing to buy what seems popular, assuming like, oh, that gives it some credentialing for being probably better than everything else.
Fully agree.
And so when Substack was getting started, I'd already missed that with Medium or whatever it is.
Medium, yeah.
Yeah,
They
and
brought
sub
in some people intentionally, I know.
right,
So Ted Gioia, right, is an example. He was like a first in person,
right. And
and
so
his
when sub
following's massive.
right, because like you look on the thing of who are the top 50 people, and he's one of them, and you're like, yeah, it must be pretty good. And so I saw Substack, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I looked at Beehive and a couple other ones, but I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a thing. Beehive costs money, Substack doesn't. And I was
Mm,
like, this way, if it's a failure, it's like all I blew was my time, not anything else. And so I started the Substack and was just like, oh, I'll just republish our old stories. So I went back to our like very first issue and was like, ah, I guess I could just copy and paste this every Thursday. Like that would be fine.
hmm.
Thinking like, whatever. Uh, we'll see.
Yeah.
Um, and and I decided just sort of to start off with, I would alternate like one free, one paywalled halfway down the story, one free,
Okay.
one paywalled halfway down
Hmm.
the story. And like and I sent out an email to my email list and was like, hey, if you want to join, if you want to read this, and immediately like three or four people signed up within like a day. And I was like, huh, all right. So then like I waited a week and I started doing another email being like, hey, if you haven't joined our Substack, you should join it. And like another 50 free people signed up and another three or four people signed up for paid. And it wasn't a lot, but it was enough where I was like, okay, clearly there's a demand for this kind of format
Hmm.
because, if we probably get, this goes back to the transparency side of it, for our digital and print magazines, we probably lose five people a month and gain another 12 or 15. So we gain about 10 people a month.
As paid
Uh,
subscribers,
yeah,
you
as
mean?
paid subscribers to
Hmm.
the print or digital magazine. So the
Yeah.
idea of getting like 7 or 10 people in a couple of weeks for the Substack, I was like, huh, all right. So then I started doing a couple of big emails to asking people like from our email list, you want to join our Substack? Do you really like this? This is why it's cool. And that started to grow that way. And then I very quickly switched over our submissions and our a couple of other things we were doing and basically put a clause in there that said, if you do this, you're going to be automatically subscribed to our Substack.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and so we worked with BookFunnel for years. BookFunnel
Yeah, I'm not
is,
familiar.
yeah, there's one or two people that do it, but BookFunnel is the one I stumbled across. And basically, so let's say you've got an email list of 10,000 people and I've got an email list of 10,000 people. You go to BookFunnel, and we both go there, and you said like or I'll start with myself. I'm going to send out an email to my people telling them to download my short story or the first chapter of my book or the prelude to a book or whatever or poem.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm also going to include yours, right?
Oh,
To your book or your intro or your thing. So when they click
interesting.
on so when they click on mine, they have to enter their email address, and then it takes them to a page where they can download the EPUB file or the Mobi file or the PDF. If
Yeah.
they click on yours, they go to your book funnel page where they have to enter their email address to download your book or EPUB or whatever you've got. So now you've got their email address. So your list just became 10,001. My list is still 10,000. But now
Ah,
when you send out your email, you're going to include my book.
right.
And so now all of your people, so it's a way for me to get your email subscribers without you breaking the law because people have opted in, right?
It's also like an extremely friendly way to do something kind of like an affiliate link. Like
It's
it's
very much so, right?
yeah.
And so I did that for 3 or 4 years, and there's a reputational thing. They've got all this back end coding, so you can't be a freeloader. So like people can see like for the emails you send out, how many people open it, how many free books are downloaded. So they know if like your list is essentially zero and you're just, you bought your list off of like Reddit or something or
Hmm.
Fiverr. And so, I would get a couple of hundred downloads of other people's books when I would send out to my email list. And so they were very happy to include me in their email list. And so that grew my list from initially probably just a few thousand to probably 25,000, 30,000.
Wow.
And I started including on that book funnel link, like if you take our book funnel book, like you are getting entered into our Substack.
Mm.
You're getting imported. And so every week I was importing, 500 or 1,000 people more sometimes, if depending on how it went. Um, and so I was just continually importing people into Substack now for as free subscribers, right?
Yeah.
And they knew they were doing it. They knew what they were getting in for. They knew that they were opting into this. And so that got us to the first, 20, 30,000 pretty quickly. Um, and some of those people became paid, some didn't. Uh, and then I stumbled on the idea of uh, using various social media platforms. So there's, for example, an Instagram, and people don't like this, but I find it useful. There used to be one for Twitter too, but it doesn't. Twitter's kind of a dumpster fire now, where
Yes.
basically you would. I'll use Twitter as the example since it doesn't exist anymore as a tool. Is you would look to see who someone's Twitter followers were. So I would say like, oh, I'll use Red Hen Press just as an example. Red Hen Press probably has the same Twitter followers that are interested in me.
Hmm.
So I pay this service. The service looks at the Red Hen Press Twitter followers, and it follows their followers, waits, a week or 2 or 3 weeks or however long I set it for, and then it unfollows them. And unless they're following me, then it keeps
Yeah.
following them,
That's so interesting.
right?
Okay.
So it's a follow unfollow thing. If they follow me,
Yeah.
then it shoots them an email and says, "Hey, thanks for following me. Really appreciate it. Hey, maybe if you like what we do, here's a sample magazine that you can get from our website. Also, here's a link to our Substack where we send out an email every week with a free short story."
This is
And so,
interesting, and I think people will appreciate the transparency because I think they don't know how that works, but they've seen it happen.
for sure, they probably have all gotten that email, right?
Yeah.
After you follow someone, you get an email within like a few minutes to a day,
And
and it
then
doesn't.
and also experience the follow unfollow thing and be like, what
Mhm.
happened there? And you're just like, huh,
Right,
that's weird.
right.
Yeah.
And the ones that are now much more sophisticated is they will read that person's profile and tailor the DM to their profile. So it won't just say thank you for following me.
Oh, yes.
It'll say thank you for following me. I see from your profile that you're a writer. That's really cool. We publish a lot of writers,
Hmm.
short fiction, and so so every email is like 20 or 30% unique to that person's
This is
profile.
actually like an AI use case scenario where it
Right,
scrapes the data. Hmm. Yeah.
right. And it's a pretty useful thing. And so I did that for several years until Twitter kind of became a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's notably I'll say I think chill subs kind of stopped using follower counts on Twitter as
right.
anything meaningful because it stopped being the town
Yeah.
square.
And also, I think once Elon Musk bought it, I think a lot of people,
Oh yeah, they just soured on it.
if they didn't leave it, they at the very least let it die. Like
Right.
they're not active on it anymore.
Hmm.
And that's when I kind of got off it as well, is once Elon Musk bought it and started doing Doge stuff. So we still post on it because we can't afford not to, but we don't like we go out of our way not to give them any money or support them in any way.
That's respect.
I do this now though with Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram has much stronger restrictions on how often you can DM people and follow and follow people.
Hmm.
So
They do. Yeah.
so I probably only do that. we probably only follow and unfollow 5 or 7 people a day. And the service that I use now, you give them a catalog of people. So I give them like 50 different um, Instagram places,
Hmm.
accounts. And so they might follow one person on your Instagram account and not come back to it for another 3, 4, 5 days or a week. So it's not just sucking it all up. It's much more, strategic. But then, of course, same thing. It follows and unfollows, and then it follows up with a DM giving you a link to our Substack.
So to put it together though, like I'm trying to think for people like what does this tangibly kind of get you that's positive and then also for readership because the part
Sure.
about sort of just upping the follower count on
Yeah.
Substack. I mean, it sounds sort of like obviously the optics of it are good, and also like getting, you noted having people auto opt in to be signed up for Substack, even if they're not going to use it, which
Hmm.
seems very reasonable in that a ton of people might just not use Substack at all, so they're never even going to
Yeah.
look at it, so it's not
But they
bothering
get
them.
the email, right? Because when you send out
Oh,
something on Substack as an
right.
email, it gets the
That's
email.
true. That's true. They will get the emails,
Yep.
and not everyone wants that clutter.
Great.
And they could just unsubscribe immediately.
Absolutely. And then once in a while,
Yeah.
maybe once or twice a month, I'll get an email from somebody that's like, "Get me off of this," and I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Okay, there's clearly an unsubscribe button, but I will
Right.
manually unsubscribe that person and send them an
Sure.
apology note."
Yeah.
So the thing, I guess, to get to the second part of that story, then the thing that
Yeah.
you're implying is how do you turn that into money, right? How do you turn that into paying the bills?
Hmm.
Uh, and so the thing you have to figure out, and this only comes with just data, is how much does it cost me to get a free subscriber? How many of those free subscribers become paid subscribers? How long do they stay paid subscribers is churn rate?
Yeah.
And so what is the lifetime value of a subscriber, right? And so let's say that it costs me, I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say it costs me $1 per free subscriber. So I've got 100 new free subscribers. It costs me $100. And you're like, well, that's a terrible business model to pay $100 for 100 people that don't pay.
Right.
But let's say three of them become paid at $5 a month.
Hmm.
So now I've got $15 is coming in that month. You're like, well, wait a minute, $15 doesn't cover your 100. That's still a pretty stupid business model. I'm like,
Hmm.
but I know that the average subscriber stays for 9 months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now it's 9 times 15. So
Hmm.
now I'm in a very different number. And so now I can clear my $100, right, over the lifetime value of that person.
The
But
math
that
checks out. Yes.
Yeah, the math checks out. But here's the thing, you only know if the math checks out once you start getting the data to feed into a formula, right?
Right.
And you start to think of all this is where Chat GPT was really useful to me because
Hmm.
like I knew the formula, but I didn't know the math.
Yeah.
Like I intuited the formula, but
Sure.
I didn't know how to do the math per se. And so I just have sat many, many hours with Chat GPT and said like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And and so it has talked to me a lot about like, for example, what is the cost versus the lifetime value of someone I got from BookFunnel
Hmm.
versus someone that I got from a Facebook ad versus someone that I got who submitted to the magazine, and because they submitted to the magazine, they ended up a free person on Substack. They all might have different mathematical formulas. Uh, and to the extent you can track that, you might care about that. To the extent you can't, you just kind of eyeball it, right? You're always dealing with like fuzzy math.
Yeah.
Um, and so and so you start figuring that out. And then you also start to think, well, what's the halo effect? So let's say that I have 100 free people that are on my Substack and three become paid Substack subscribers, but two others become paid print or digital magazine subscribers
Ah, there we go.
because they're just like, well, I don't want to pay $5 a month for an email, but because I like to read the paper version, right?
Yeah,
And so
for
you
sure.
also get this halo effect. And then there's the other side of it of like, well, once you get to a certain size as a Substack, that generates potentially advertising revenue. It also
Hmm.
generates credibility. So, you look at a Substack and they've got 150 subscribers, and you go and you think, like our music example, well, they must not be that good. Otherwise, they'd have more. Then you
Hmm.
look at another one with 150,000 subscribers like ours, and you
Yeah,
think, look, this must be a great magazine. Like, how did they get
that's
150,000 people? They must be crushing it. And,
exactly
and
right. Yeah,
right, and the answer, truthfully, is I just am working. Like I'm just
right.
working, right? Like I'm sure there are other magazines that are just as good with people with just as good of writing that are just as focused, that are just like,
Yeah, you're
there's
effectively angling and working the system that's there to be worked. I mean,
right.
um, and so
And trying to create that
notably,
credibility.
yeah, and notably, like the way Substack, I'm not seeing the words in front of me right now, but they have like the overall bestsellers, right,
Uh-huh.
list, and then they have the rising category, and
Yeah.
that's I feel like something people probably look at, and you
Hmm.
guys after dinner conversation is like 25, like number 25 out of the top 50 rising in
Yeah.
fiction, which is like incredible
Yeah,
considering.
and we're always there. We're always in the top 20 or 25. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and and among overall in fiction, we're always in the top 50 or 40.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
it's not like there isn't steep competition there because
Yeah.
there's definitely serious other journals and
And we're
writers up there.
probably, and we're probably, if we're not number one, we're probably in the top three or four of literary magazines. So if you look at like that list of top in the category of fiction, Chill
Hmm.
Subs is number one.
Right.
And they're
And
not really,
Subclub, yeah, is
yeah,
up
and
there too.
Sub Club and people that's again, it's like the business of the business. And it's
Sure.
like you're not fiction, but you somehow put yourself in this category. And then there are other people like the guy who wrote Fight Club, Chuck Palahniuk, I can't even pronounce
Yeah,
his
Chuck
name.
Palahniuk, yeah, and
Yeah.
then George Saunders is up there.
Right. And it's
Right.
like, well, clearly we're not ever going to be bigger than them.
Mm.
So when you start reading up of like who's just a literary magazine that publishes their stuff on Substack, I'm not sure there's anyone higher than us. There might be a few, but it's very few.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I'm not sure that there is even.
yeah. And again, this is all stuff that I've told people in CLMP, the
Hmm.
Community of Literary Magazine and Presses. I've told them like, look, I will tell you everything I do because like I want people to read, literary magazines. I want them to have this tool, and they're just like,
Hmm.
we're good. Like we're good.
Yeah, I should, double down and say you're generously active in the CLMP forums,
Yeah.
and not everybody is, offering advice. And again, like this is just an overall of the this sort of gatekeeping that I felt
Yeah.
in the literary community is strange. There is this sense, like you said, about like the piece of the pie that like there's only this little sliver that we're competing for, and so I don't know. I found it depressing, especially when I was younger, because I just didn't have connections. That
Right.
like there was really no way, and this is also before we had the level of sort of internet reach too, but like finding out about residencies or finding out
Hmm.
grants that were available. And I may have been eligible for some of that stuff, and
Right.
no one was really going to be like, hey, you should take a look at this because I guess potentially added competition.
So I've asked CLMP and I've asked other literary magazines that have applied for grants, like literary arts grants,
Yeah.
that have gotten it. I'm like, hey, can you send me your application? Like we've applied two or three times, we've gotten denied. Like clearly we're not focusing on the right stuff. And they're like, no, we can't. And I'm like, why
Wow.
not? And they're like, well, because then you'll apply. And I'm like, oh, got it. That's
They
the
really
world we live
straight
in.
up said
Yeah,
it, huh?
right.
Wow.
They're
Well,
like,
that's
look,
direct.
well, I mean, what they'll say is it's proprietary information. And I'm like, what's proprietary? Like, you run a literary magazine. Like, I know what you do.
Yeah,
Like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, how are you wording it? What are you focusing on? Are you focusing
sure.
on the diversity aspects of it? Are you focusing on the sustainability aspects of it, the youth aspect of it? Like,
Hmm.
they just won't. To this day, I've never had anyone share a successful grant application with me.
Wow. That's quite
Right.
a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where we are with our Substack. So after about 3 or 6 months of me doing the Substack myself, and Substack's great about letting you schedule 60 or 90 days out. so you could just sort of like dump it and be done with it.
Hmm.
Um, one of our people, one of our readers was like, "Hey, I have a Substack. I like Substack. Do you do you want me to run our Substack?" And I was like, "Please." This lady Tina Horsey, who was amazing, and
Yes, yes, I just saw your
yeah,
staffer is the lead
she's
person. Right.
she's super awesome. And I was like, "Look, here's the thing. Like, I do it badly because I just don't have enough time. So you should do it better. And like, don't feel like what I'm doing is like gospel. Like, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to try things. It's going to fail. It's going to like, just learn, do it. It's cool." And so, she started adding survey questions because people really love surveys. She then started doing author interviews that we post for free every other week.
Nice.
And
It's cool.
she just like, I'm just going to do this. And so she ran it for like 2 years. She just retired like a couple of weeks ago, and we
Oh
got
wow.
new people that have taken it over. And I told them the same thing. I was like, look, like it's not gospel. Like just make mistakes, like be silly, try stuff. The other thing I have done also is I have so if you go to a website or anything and go to file print, and then instead of printing to your printer, you do print to PDF,
Of course, yeah.
it
To
will
save it.
give you a PDF of the whole thing.
Yeah, and you could
I've
save that.
take Right, and so I've saved those and I've uploaded those to Gemini as well as ChatGPT and said like, look, I'm trying to get free people to become paid people.
Mm.
Um,
Interesting.
and I want them to read it and I want them to come back with it and I want them to engage in it. Like, what do you think of this? And it's like, well, here's what you're doing wrong. And so they'll tell me like, you need to have the story start sooner. So we used to have like a whole opening part that was like awards and like a letter from the editor, like what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Then the story would start, about a
Right, so
half a
people would
page
have to
down.
be scrolling for a little
Right,
already.
right. And AI was like, dude, no, you can't do that.
Start
Like,
closer to the action, right? Just like in a
yeah,
short
like,
story.
right, just like in a short story. And so now so I literally would change it and then upload it again to ChatGPT and be like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What? So we've slowly been changing it over time to using AI as sort of expertise on just sort of layout and sequencing.
It's wise. Yeah.
Because and maybe it's wrong, but at the very least, it's giving me things I haven't thought of.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so it's at least giving me,
exactly.
it's like helping
Mhm.
my brain churn a little bit, right?
I agree. Yeah, no, I like what you're saying because it's not the negative cognitive offload, which is a lot of
Right.
the AI concern. This is like the just getting you to think and you're engaging, and this is like part of what human computer interfacing is supposed to be about, right?
Right. And so there
It's
are times,
cyborg kind of stuff.
right. And so there are times when I will tell AI, like, I don't like that suggestion. Don't mention it again. Like, I'm not doing that. And it's like, okay, I won't mention it again. And then it's gone, right? But at the very least, I'm getting these sort of thoughts about this stuff, which
Yeah.
I did not get before, right?
Yeah, no, it's super good.
Yeah.
While it's still on my mind, so we talked about a little about like the sort of monetary component
Hmm.
related to getting more followers and the halo
Yeah.
effect. Um, with the different platforms, you mentioned like heritage social media, and doing sort of like LinkedIn kind of
Yeah.
paid stuff to kind of get more followers and things like that. And then
Sure.
also for Substack. In all these scenarios, right, you can see the analytics behind the scenes. So like
Hmm.
I'm guessing you've looked at that and seen, I mean, we can't fully equate like click rates with readership, but I'm guessing you saw some good improvements on readership that were seemingly positive.
Yeah. So literally, even just today,
Yeah.
I took a screen capture of news. So in Substack, there's one of the options will show you like where did you get your new subscribers from? Free
Yeah.
ones. And then it's all these drop downs and it's like it creates this big colored chart. Uh so I didn't take a picture of the colored chart, I took a picture of the details. And just literally today, I screen captured it for the last 30 days, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and was like, look, here's how much I'm spending on book funnel. Here's how much I'm spending on ads. Here's how much I'm spending on this and this and this. Like, can you correlate all of these numbers so you can tell me which money is actually turning into people? Um,
Wise.
and so ChatGPT, and I do this every 30 days, at least until I get the trends better. Maybe I won't do it as often later. And it was like, yeah, when people find you organically on Substack, um, that works. But when you pay for Facebook ads, those people convert from free to paid at 4 times the rate of people
Hmm.
who find you organically on Substack. And I'm just like, okay,
That's
so you're
fascinating.
telling me, right? So you're telling me that 25 paid Facebook free subscribers is equal to 100 people that find me on Substack and just add me organically. And I'm like, okay, now I know who matters and who
It
doesn't.
makes you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me, yeah, so I'll mention one art as an example. So I know because I can see the data,
Mhm.
right, from what's the name of it? Like Meta has its
Uh-huh.
own sort of business suite, and you can
Yeah.
see like a little bit more information about like what's going on like your
Hmm.
Facebook and Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
And it breaks down creepily. It'll break things down on sort of like gender demographics.
Yeah.
It'll tell you like average ages of people who are reading, and there is like quite a bit of variation, but definitely One Art's readership skews older.
Hmm.
And so I've sort of wondered what basically like what I'm supposed to do with that information as far as journal growth. Like I'm not interested, and I
So
I
so let me
don't.
give you an example of how
Sure,
you
yeah,
can use it because I like because in my mind, like I thought I was in the literary magazine business. I'm really in the marketing business because without the
yeah,
marketing, there is no literary magazine. And
correct.
so, for example, here's one of the things that I have done is in Substack, as I'm sure you and anyone who watches in the future will know, they have like that 5-star system, like who's a 5-star or 4 stars, and that
Yeah, you
tells you
can
roughly how
the
often
level
they,
of readership,
yeah, how
basically.
often they interact with your posts or your
Yeah.
emails or whatever.
Hmm.
So I've taken that and I do this almost every month, but certainly at least every few months. And I export it and then I sort those people by the star system. And
Hmm.
then I say, like, look, a 5-star person is worth $1, a 4-star person is worth 75 cents, all the way down to someone who subscribed but has 0 stars is worth like a dime or a nickel. And so I've added a value to every one of those people. And then I take those and I have just the first name, last name, email address, the value of them. And I think Substack gives you maybe their state and country. I don't recall.
Hmm.
And I import that into Facebook as an audience.
Oh,
And so I tell Facebook, look, those 5-star people are valuable. They might not be paid. I mean, I also include the paid people at whatever their paid value is. And so Facebook now has 150,000 people. Initially, they were getting like 20 or 30,000 when we started. And I said, look, here's 30,000 people that I know open my email when I send it to them, right? They are like, can you find me more of these people? And so Facebook says yes, because it matches the email address and the name and the stuff to the Facebook account if it can. Um, and it doesn't get all of them, but it gets probably half of them or 2/3 of them because everyone's on Facebook somewhere.
yeah,
Uh, and then I say, look, I don't want to advertise to those people because they're already members of my Substack. So then what I do is I create a lookalike audience and tell Facebook, like, look, take these 30,000 people and find me 1 million of them that are similar.
right.
And Facebook's like, sure, like I can look up the demographics of these people. I know lots about these people. And so then I start advertising to that 1 million person lookalike audience to try and get them to go to my Substack. And then it becomes a feedback loop, right?
Yeah,
Like eventually Substack, Facebook learns which people in that lookalike audience do well, but I'm every couple of weeks or months feeding that information back into Facebook to further refine the algorithm. So like if you're seeing my ad, like you're seeing my ad, right? Like
right.
there's a reason you're seeing
Of
it.
course.
Right.
You're You've become quite good at marketing, I have to say. This
I
is this is some high level marketing strategy.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
and Facebook's really good about that. I tried Reddit. Reddit is also good, but it doesn't have good tracking data, and so
hmm,
I couldn't like feed it the audiences, and I couldn't feed it the information the way that was useful.
right.
Um, and so yeah, so if somebody, likes a Facebook post, if they go to my Facebook, if they go to my Substack page, even if they go and don't subscribe, like I still know who they are, usually, not always. And I still feed that data back to Facebook saying, like, look, like this person clicked on the link, they went, they spent a little time there, they didn't become a free subscriber. That doesn't mean they're worthless, but keep that in mind as you're figuring this out in the future.
That's this
Yeah.
is all useful. I feel like I should insert here because I know some people, if they decide to watch this, are going to be slightly disturbed and creeped out by the sharing
Oh,
of
Facebook is crazy.
information. Right, I know. I feel like it's important to say that, like, between these different platforms, like, people are really worried about what gets entered into AI chatbots and, like, what
Mhm.
information is given to Facebook. And it's no, the reality of it is they're fully capable and are scraping the internet and getting this info one way or another,
Yeah.
regardless. And
Well,
people,
they're getting it from your cookie and from your pixel anyway, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
it's a little
it's not like
like
there's a big secret here.
I know. I feel like it's important to say this because people, and that this is a greater good thing that you're aiming for, and that I would be aiming for too, and anyone who might be using these strategies, because people are going to hear it and think that it like sounds like kind of nefarious and is like an unfair
Mm,
use of their data. But like this is intentional, and it's getting there anyway. It reminds me of the way that like just a very different but like
yeah.
kind of obvious example is for a while people were very mad about PayPal and they'd be like, I don't want to use PayPal. I want to give you a donation, but not PayPal, but I'll use Venmo. And then I didn't have the heart to tell them that PayPal owns
And
Venmo.
Venmo.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and like everything is owned by something else. And if you know anything about how the
Yeah.
markets work and big businesses and monopolies and like it just goes on and on. And, like a
I
lot
will
of
say that
people don't get this
for what
stuff.
it's worth, the information that I upload to Facebook is actually anonymized
Ah,
and anonymous. So Facebook eventually essentially strips out. So it
it's
basically
just
finds the
metadata.
person. Yeah, it finds the person. It strips out the data, but then it creates the person, the virtual person, basically that's looking for.
Right.
But you don't have to do that. You literally can upload a bunch of email addresses to Facebook and
Hmm.
say, and there are stories, if you do a quick Google search, you can find this, where somebody like wants to get a job at wherever, Intel, and they find the email address for Intel's CEO and they upload it to Facebook and they're like, just show ads to this one email address, only this email address, just this one. So every time the CEO of Intel logs in, like you're willing to pay $20 to have your email, to have your ad in front of this guy. And like this is it's super creepy. I don't disagree that it's creepy,
Yeah,
but like this is the world we live in now. It's crazy.
exactly. Yeah, so I mean, I think we actually covered a lot of
Yeah, no
the
worries.
prepared sort of thoughts that I had in mind, about like whether or not this should be a focus. I think we're
Mm,
determining yes, it's a legitimate focus for literary magazines,
yeah,
that newsletters and these kinds of spaces actually are a sensible prerogative. Um, and I think you've sort of illustrated the value proposition, right? That like this will get you more readership and like potentially more tangible subscribers, like
yeah.
to a print magazine, even, right?
And I would also add, just as a side note, is like
Yeah.
there are people who are on Substack, whether they're literary magazines or they're individual writers or whatever, and this it's a hobby. And like I'm not trying to make money. I'm not trying to like get 100,000 subscribers. Like I want an outlet for my creative process, or
Yeah.
I want another outlet for the authors that we publish. Like there's nothing wrong with being small. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong
Absolutely.
with treating it as a hobby. Just the just don't treat it like a hobby and expect business results. Like
Well
if you
said.
want it to be a business, treat it like a business, right? Like so, or if you
Yeah,
want it to be a hobby, treat it like a hobby.
I think that's important too. There's like sort of a pep talk that I feel like a lot of creatives, as people say, need, which is, relates to the self-branding. And this is sort of like,
Yeah.
it's kind of tied in, which is like people hate hearing that concept, but, people are smarter than I, and, more articulate, have noted that like it's actually very important to learn how to present yourself, how to market yourself as
Mhm.
an artist, because like artists more than really anyone are in the position of like needing to be able to sell themselves in order to get people to like read their work, buy their book.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help your cause by sort of being, thinking you have to be shy and mysterious because that's like a required thing. We're not
Yeah.
in the 90s, so it's
Well,
okay to sell out now.
and I also think, and this was an early decision that I made,
Yeah.
is I think a sustainable business model is one where you can pay the people who work for you,
Yes.
right? Like, so one of the things you will often see in literary magazines is you see a really driven uh, founder who
Mm-hmm.
probably has some sort of support network, a spouse that works,
Yes.
or they own the house, they inherited the house from their parents, so they don't need a lot of money or whatever. And they work on their literary magazine for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. They do it all volunteer, they do it all on a volunteer staff basis. And eventually, either they or their staff or both burn out,
Yeah.
or their ability
100%.
to work for free comes to an end, and the magazine shuts, right? And so you
Yes.
see that the average literary magazine has often just a couple of year lifespan, and then you
Yeah.
see the ones that span decades, and the difference is they pay people some sort of stipend that
Mm-hmm.
allows them to like do this as a part-time job and maybe have another part-time job or and so like if you can pay somebody even $40,000 a year, that literary magazine will effectively live forever, right? Beyond that person's retirement. But if you're relying on volunteers, like eventually you're going to burn everyone out.
Yeah, there is so much to unpack there, and I have really strong feelings on this issue because previously, before One Art, I worked for the Schuylkill Valley Journal,
Mhm.
and before then, I worked for several other journals. Came up the traditional route actually, which is
Yeah.
less common now. For like started out as a reader for a couple magazines, then got into like a larger position, which I didn't realize was actually going to be a lot of grunt work.
Yeah.
And this was all volunteer basis stuff,
Right.
right? And it's hugely time consuming, and
Right.
people ask a lot of you. And then, when I was in a managerial role within the journal, I mean, it would feel terrible for me to ask things of people, especially we take on sort of like younger people,
Mm.
interested or like just out of college or just like sort of getting their feet wet in the scene a bit. And these are years where, like, in many ways, like, they should probably be focusing on their own art. And this is really cutting into their time,
Yeah.
asking them to, like, do social media and things like that, or asking them just for, like, a lot of free labor.
And to do it for free. Yeah.
Exactly. And I found this, like, very distressing over time. And, like, for myself, I was initially less concerned, although over time got a little I have a bit of a grudge about like some of this stuff. Like it did eventually get to me, and it did burn me out,
Right.
in many ways. And anyway,
I'll also add, just to
yeah,
tie on one other aspect to what you're saying,
sure.
is I also think that going this sort of free intern, free labor
Hmm.
route, it also creates literary magazines that come from a place of privilege. Because what it means is the only people who work for literary magazines are people who come from a culture and background that allows them to like work 30 hours a week for free. And maybe I'm sharing a house with four other roommates,
Yeah,
but like I can do it. And so that also, I think, colors the perspective of what's published because It's like, oh, rich white suburban guy. I'll use myself as an example. What
Yeah.
do you know? The only kind of writing I like is the writing that comes from rich white suburban guys.
Yeah,
And
it
so
tends to
it gives
speak
you
of a class thing. Yeah.
right. And so the more you can pay people, the more you can remove it from class as well, I think.
That's a really that's a really good point to insert in there. Man, there's so much I want to say about this particular area because it's something that really like drives me up a wall. I'm sort of having like 10 different thoughts at once here. But yeah, no, so the reason I say this all the time, the reason that there's no staff really. So like Louisa, my wife, is consulting editor for One Art,
Right,
is because, she's willing to give a hand for free.
right,
And I haven't felt in the position to pay staff. And because of that, there are no staff, because
right,
I feel like the only fair way to do this would be to pay them.
right,
And but at the same time, right, like I do feel in some ways like a One Art, like for me, I've turned it into a completely full-time job.
That's
I
great.
should say for the magazine I worked for before this, when I was still working a more traditional job, it was also kind of a full-time job.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I do this, I work, everyone knows in some way or another, I work, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, doing something every day for One Art. And it's, it's both a labor of love and a for-profit business, I suppose, right?
Right.
Like it has to be on that model. And so
Otherwise, it dies
eventually,
with you.
right,
Right,
right, exactly. So yeah, I should say like that was an issue with the previous journal I worked for was there was a lack of succession planning that was
right.
going on, and that was an issue for people working for the journal was that they sort of didn't know what was coming next, and there was a lot of confusion and frustration. But yeah, no, I mean, so it's reached a point for me, I think we sort of had a short back and forth before this, like related to this subject, where you sort of noted you reached a point where you were like, I sort of have to pay myself, right, to in order to do this.
Well, I'm at 7 years doing
Yeah,
this for free, and I've done it pretty much 40 or 50 hours a week for 7 years. And the only money I've taken is I finally bought a laptop with money from the magazine,
unbelievable. My
which was
goodness.
a huge decision because I was like, well, but it's a laptop. I'll probably use it for other stuff once in a while. And my wife is like, you're on that laptop like 70 hours a week. Like, figure out what that works out to like per hour.
Yeah,
We figured it out, and it was like 3 cents an hour that I was,
that's
paying.
what I was gonna guess.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, and so I finally got to the point where I was like, look, I'm going to give it 10 years. And if I can't start drawing like a minimal salary of, a couple $1,000s a month in 10 years, then I'm gonna probably shut it down or way scale it back.
Yeah, so let's stay on this for a minute because so we touched on like the reason magazines tend to get the flag of fledgling, Duotrope will flag it up for the first
Mhm.
3 years is because that tends to be like sort of the fail rate. So
Yeah.
like
And I bet it's a 70 or 80% fail rate within 3 years.
it is. It's massive, and
Yeah.
some of that is just burnout. Some of that is people are, really hype and excited when they start out. I've definitely
Yeah.
seen some magazines just come out like guns blazing, like I'm not gonna name names, but they come out and they're like paying substantial amounts, which is like, whoa, where did they
Yeah.
get this money to like come out? They have like a really fancy
Right.
layout for their website, like so clearly they like are sort of moneyed in some capacity. And
And then just
then
they're gone one day.
exactly. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just like, whoa, like it fell apart. Like the person had either a personal issue or they just kind of maybe like got a little bored of the project and had like another aspiration, or they just, work life, things
Yeah.
change. But I should say, like,
I would say for us, it was
yeah.
probably 3 or 4 years before the
Hmm.
magazine wasn't costing me money. It was probably at about the 4 or 5 year point where I was like, okay, like I don't need to keep feeding this thing money.
Right.
And then it was in the last 6 months that I was like, okay, we've got an extra $200 a month. So I'm going to use that to buy Facebook ads. Um,
Right.
And then those ads have started to pay off, and I'm like, okay, in another 3 months I'm going to up it to $250 a month or $300. And because the becomes the ads then become like a snowball. But it was a good 5 or 6 years before there was like extra money at the end of the month of any kind.
That sounds about right. I mean, every year, sort of as a joke, I ask my
Yeah,
accountant, like, do you think I can hire people this year? And he's like,
right,
yeah, no. Or like,
right.
just anything of that sort, where it's just like, and I'll
Yeah.
also be like, what do you think about like incorporating one art, or what do you
Hmm.
think about? I've definitely asked people about early on about the nonprofit concept, and then
Hmm.
we could dig in on that, but there's a lot of reasons not to do it. Part of which is, you know, um, you can move fast and break things as a
Right.
single person if you have a board, which is required for a nonprofit.
Yeah. And so like we're a
There's a lot of
nonprofit and we
rules.
have a board,
Yeah.
but I literally went to like 4 or 5 of my friends and I was like, hey, I need a board to be a nonprofit. We're going to meet once
Nice.
a year. We're going to have it over tacos. And your main goal is to just say yes to everything I put in front of you. And they're like, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, I'm going to give you a bunch of our numbers. I'm going to give you our stuff. Your vote
Yeah.
is to just be like, yes, we approve.
Yeah.
And you're going to get your lunch paid for.
To be
I'm
clear,
like,
this is not a democracy. Yes.
no, no. Right. And they're like, they're like, do you even need to read the magazine? Like, I don't even care if you read it. I just am required to have a board and I don't want the board to usurp me and I don't want to have to check in with them. And
Yes.
that's all. Like, I'm just going to ask a bunch of friends to be on my nonprofit board.
So
Yeah.
again, this is where your lawyer skills are really coming into play in a positive way. This is helping out. It's all making sense. It's all coming together. I'll ask on, so just generally on the finance side,
Hmm.
I tried this year. So initially I was going to try a Kickstarter.
Hmm.
This is in line with what you were saying about like you get to this point and you're like, I kind of need to pay myself this base salary. And I came up with just going to the basically the minimum wage. I'm
Yeah.
blanking on her name at the moment, but based on the model that was created for the initial minimum wage, which we know is completely outdated because at the
Right.
time, like everybody's main focus was like food. It wasn't housing, it wasn't any other
Right.
cost of living adjustments. It was like entirely just based on like what you had to eat, basically. And so I was like, how can I get like 15 to $18,000? And I was like, well, maybe if I do like a Kickstarter
Hmm.
and try to raise like 3,500 or something like that quarterly.
Right.
And I tried to set it up, and then Kickstarter was basically like, no, because this isn't a project. And I was like, oh
Right.
right, like their parameters are like it has to be like for an
So
anthology.
there is a literary magazine that specializes in sort of the Asian American experience. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I met them at AWP last year. They were super nice. They do 2 issues a year and they only do it as a Kickstarter. So
Nice. Okay, that's
they raise
smart.
like $30,000. You pre-buy the issue, they make the issue, they ship it to you. They've got no more left over. And they do that like twice a year. And they're entirely Kickstarter driven. Um,
That's cool. That's a solid business model. Actually,
Yeah,
like I
but
like
they don't
that.
even have subscribers. Like they literally, it's like you pay for the Kickstarter, you get that one issue. You pay for the Kickstarter, you get that one issue. And I was like, I need to lock people in. Like I need to get a reoccurring revenue stream.
That's interesting. Literally, if t people look at today's post that Seth Godin put up, it is basically on this exact subject
Mm,
of like the equivalent of like instead of opening a restaurant, like what if you did like a pop-up kind of thing where you were
mhm.
just like, I'm gonna set this day, and like if everyone agrees to like register and have a reservation, then we're gonna have a dinner for everybody.
Right.
There's an interesting kind of
Yeah.
concept of just sort of the pop-up sort of model versus buying like a property or renting a property on
Yeah.
like Main Street.
It
So
minimizes
anyway,
risk too. It minimizes your
yeah,
risk too, right? Like if you don't make your money, you just don't do the project.
correct, exactly. And that, right, that is a risk. So what I ended up doing though, I should say, is I did two so far. Uh, GoFundMe's, and I
Hmm.
didn't love doing that because I certainly didn't want the optics to be that I'm like competing with people who like want, you know, are like
Needs
they need
right
money
needs
for
like a liver
medical bills.
transplant or something. Like
Correct.
only,
Yeah.
by
Like,
the way, only in America do you have to go fund like a medical surgery. But yeah,
yeah, that, yes, let's be clear. That is the American healthcare system that we all live
yeah,
in is, yeah, a necessary surgery. You may
right,
have to do a GoFundMe, which is great. Otherwise, you know,
yeah,
we'll just like, oh, sorry, buddy, you just didn't, I don't
right,
know what to tell you. Zip code
right.
destiny, right?
You should have exactly zip code destiny. Should have been Spanish. They'd have done it for free.
Right, right, exactly. Um, Yeah, so I mean, that's I don't know. I don't really have an answer to all of this.
Yeah.
I guess what I was gonna note was that the second GoFundMe was not very successful.
Mm,
And I think part of it was people were like, wait, another one already? Because I had sort
right.
of in my head figured out, and I did say in it, I was planning to do this quarterly, but I think that's I'm sort of sharing this like in the interest, you know, of transparency for other journals is like I think what people see is it's not the way that they want to fund a literary magazine. You know, like
Yeah.
they're more comfortable separating themselves from funds for the sake of, you know, like being generous for readings or a
Well,
workshop or
yeah, people
something
they want to feel like they're
programming.
buying something, right? As opposed to just
Yeah.
like for some reason staff should work for free, but the magazine I'm willing to give you money for. And it's like, the magazine is made by staff, but okay.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like so like I've you know, it's literally like yes, this money is so like I physically can sit in the chair, put in the hours to get the
Right.
programming together, but
Yeah.
it's
It's just
people
not
feel
sexy.
better giving it for this specific thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. So I've been told, and I don't know if this is correct or not, that like literary magazines aren't meant to make money, that they kind of have three legs. They've got like the grant side of it, where you get like literary grants, they've got the donor side of it, and they've got the subscriber side of it. And
Mm,
each one of those might be, 30 to 40% or 20% of your revenue model, but you need all three. And I will tell you that like we have struggled on the grant and the donor side of it. Like we get a little bit, but
hmm.
our grants are maybe 3% or 5% of our revenue. Our
Wow.
donors are maybe 3 or 5% of our revenue. And so like I spend time on it, but like I don't know rich people. Like
Yeah.
I can't, and I'll talk to people that are in like New York or LA and they're like, oh, we had a fundraiser at this bar and we had a band and my friend's band was there and we raffled off stuff and we made $30,000 in a night. And I'm like, who do you
Cool.
know? Who do you know with that kind of money? Like, I don't know. Like to me, my friends are still eating like, Taco Bell. Like, I'm not going to hit them up for a $3,000 donation.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know those people.
And I think that's part of the issue. And interestingly, I've noted whenever I say like the literary community could use a couple billionaires, like
Yeah.
with a vested interest in propping up the community, I don't really get met with a positive reaction there, which is
Oh yeah.
really
'Cause
very
they're
interesting.
very anti-billionaire, right? Like literary
Yeah,
magazines, like
I
if
mean,
there's a spectrum of liberalness, like the literary
hmm,
magazine community is way on the end
let
of that spectrum.
maybe like okay, so centimillionaire, billionaire, not maybe not, but like
Yeah,
even if I was talking about like someone who, all right, they have 50 million in assets, right? Which is still
sure.
a ton of money, right?
Right. More
Over
than enough
3
to run
million,
help you
you're
more than
very
enough to
wealthy.
keep your literary magazine afloat.
So, but what's interesting is just that, yeah, there's just people are a little too allergic to it,
Yeah.
in a way that I think is really unfortunate, especially in a time, right, where we're seeing the NEA like stop
Right.
existing, right?
Yeah.
Before I was saying, right, everyone gate kept the information, and so I didn't know how to properly apply, say for like an NEA grant
Oh,
when
it
it
took it
came
took me
time.
3 years to figure it out. It literally the first year I gave up, the second
Mhm.
year I got halfway through the process, and then I missed the deadline, and
Yeah.
then it was literally 3 years before I could apply for an NEA grant, which I'm still waiting to hear back on,
Oh, well,
almost a
now
year
it's
later.
there's, I mean,
Yeah, I may never see any of that money.
Yeah, I mean, did you, well, wait, so you ended up doing it for this round. Did you give like a whole pro-America slant to it? And
We did. Like I was just like, look, I just need your money, man. I got
yeah.
so we do these themed issues, and I was like, look, do you want us to do a themed issue? I think what I pitched was we would do a themed issue, a themed compilation, not news
Mhm.
stories, but republish stories, repackage them as a themed issue related to sort of theories of government and democracy
Mhm.
and like voice, like how people are heard and in what ways they're heard. We have plenty of stories we could do about that.
Yeah.
And that ties into America because, blah, blah, blah. And we applied in February of last year, and we still haven't even heard a yes or no.
Okay, well, I had one in my head for you that I thought it might have been going in this direction, but
Oh,
I
yeah,
feel
let's hear
like
it.
there's a whole, fiscal conservatism, philosophical interweaving thing there
Sure, there could
that,
be.
and from a fictional standpoint could be
Yeah.
interesting, you know. I mean, Milton Friedman, could make some appearances.
So one of the, we were talking earlier at the very start of this about sort of
Yeah,
following Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts. Some of
yeah,
the accounts that I followed that I found very useful were people that were professors in sort of economic theory, political theory,
fascinating
um,
stuff. Yeah.
because like if you're thinking about those things, you're thinking about them often within sort of philosophical terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like why is the interest on your home loan deductible but not the interest on your rent? Right? Like these are
Rawls.
all things, right? These are all things that economic theorists think about, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
and so I found a good audience in those kind of people, both as readers and as submitters, because when you work in a field all day long, you get frustrated by the results of your field as well sometimes, and you want to
Absolutely.
write stories that talk about those frustrations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
yeah. At any rate, any topics that we haven't covered, I'm happy to chat forever, but I don't want to hold you up.
Oh no, I mean me too. Anything come to mind? Yeah, the classic question, right? Is there anything that we overlooked or
So
that we should
so
have
here
asked?
so here's what I would say
Yeah,
as my end thing. So years ago, I shot archery competitively back in junior high school, and eventually it paid my way through college back when archery was a collegiate NCAA sport.
very cool.
And
I
there,
love archery.
it's I really have a very slim build, so it was like that or table tennis were going to be my only options. Um, and so there was a conference I went to one time, and there was a guy there who was a 76 and 84 gold medalist.
Wow.
And he walks in and he's like, "Look, I'm going to tell you everything I know and I'm going to tell you everything I do." He's like, and you might think, "Oh, he's not telling me the real thing that makes him win." He's like, "I'm telling you now. I'm telling you the real thing that makes me win. And here's why I'm willing to tell you, because I know you won't do it." He's like, I know that you won't weight train. I know that you won't take up running. I know that you won't do 20 minutes of mental imagery every day. I know that you won't. And he started listing all the things he did. And it was like, man, like you do this like 5 hours a day,
Hmm.
like for archery, which is like, archery. Come on, really?
Right, right. And
And
you're
I,
people are thinking like it's like bowling where you could just show
right,
up with a beer and then throw a
right,
strike, right? Like yeah.
right. And I remember thinking about that, and I feel like to some degree, being a successful literary magazine is similar. Like there will be people who are like, oh, there's a secret that we don't know that he hasn't told us. And then if we only knew the thing that really made it work, then we could have a literary magazine as well that grew and was successful. And it's like, no, I've told you everything. Like the secret is there is no secret. Like the secret is it's
Hmm.
just like work. It's like every day, like today is Sunday, and I woke up at 8:15 and I went to a coffee shop until 1 o'clock and worked on the magazine. I came home to do this and another interview. I'm going to do 4 more hours of work tonight, and then I'm going to kind of call it a night at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And I do that every day, and I never miss a day. Like
Tell me a
it's
little
like
about the why.
that's the secret, right? Like the secret is you just grind it out, man.
I'm very similar at this point, and I
Yeah.
guess the question is how did we get here? And
So that's a great question. So
yeah.
there is a why. So if I was just starting a literary magazine because I was like, I think literary magazines are awesome, I would have quit years ago. Um, because there are lots of literary magazines and they're all pretty good and they all give voice to the voiceless and they all, like
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's hundreds of outstanding literary magazines. the reason that I do this is because of the thing that we publish, and that is short fictional stories that cause people to do a meta-analysis of their own value system, right?
It's
Uh,
niche for
it's
sure.
right, it's niche, but like I see the way, and this is again just my perspective, but I see the way America and the way social media has turned into a shouting match.
Hmm.
And it's like this identity politics. And it's like when you have a conversation with someone, you're not really talking to them. Often they're just waiting for you to pause so they can say the thing they were always going to say.
Correct.
And it's like, and to me, that's just like a cancer. Um, there's a great movie called The Big Kahuna with Danny DeVito. There's an end speech. If you ever get a chance to watch it, it's on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it. And he basically says, uh, look, when you talk to someone and you take over a conversation, whether it's about, God or, low interest loans with no money down or industrial grade bolt, like
Hmm.
you've become a marketing rep. Like, if you really want to have a conversation, like ask someone about their kids, ask them about their dreams, ask them like, what makes them excited about their life. Like, and then just listen. Um,
It's like being on a date, right?
right,
And
right,
asking
right. But
questions
do
and
but
being
you're doing it
Socratic, right?
right
Like
and doing it
Socratic
without
stuff.
motivation, like just as a genuine interest in this person.
Sure.
And I wanted to publish stories that did that in a story form, right? That allowed the reader to talk with others, but also talk to themselves and be like, gosh, why do I think that guns are bad or guns are good? Why do I think that 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 an individual's rights trump the needs of a larger society and culture, that you can't
Hmm.
trample on individual rights. But you have to phrase the story in a way where a person doesn't just go like, oh, this is why I think this.
Yeah.
Like, so we often publish a lot of science fiction and a lot of like, oh, this isn't about you, this is on another planet, or this is an extreme situation, or this is whatever,
Throws
whatever,
people
whatever.
off a little, right? Yeah.
Right. Because it doesn't immediately bring in. And so, from my perspective, and this is going to sound very pretentious, but bear with me, like based on my value system, I feel like I'm every day I wake up and try and cure cancer, right?
I think yeah, no, what
And
you're saying
so,
is like you're aiming for really like a moral good here. Like,
right. And so like nobody, like literally there are people who try and cure cancer. Like
yes.
nobody who's literally trying to cure cancer wakes up and is like, it just doesn't pay well enough. Like I'm gonna go make a more addictive cigarette. Like
Yeah,
like they do it, and this is the case with a lot of teachers, I'm sure. This is the case with a lot of pastors. This is the case with a lot of
sure.
people where
Absolutely.
it's like I would do
Motivates you.
this for free because I feel like it's the greatest and highest use of my time. And I
Hmm.
if I won $1 million, nothing would change about my life tomorrow. I'd still be up at 8:15 in a coffee shop trying to find things that encourage these conversations.
I love this answer for so many reasons. I like that it's working in story, which is a conversation I have less often because I'm often talking to people about poetry, which also
Poetry
does
can do
a
it too, though, for
meeting
sure.
people halfway, right? Like have, certain level of hand holding. You're trying to open people to ideas. So there, a lot of it, it's just medium is message stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's the choices are there. I do what and I love too what you're sort of saying. I'm like a huge Camus fan, but something that I feel like
Hmm.
is totally lacking in his stuff is like his delivery, right? Like so often his characters are just sort of floating in space, having a philosophical
Right.
conversation, and
Right. That I really
um,
struggle with that.
yeah, no, and personally, so what I've gravitated towards much, much more is I love his notebooks
Mm.
because it's just the raw behind the scenes ideas. And maybe it's like, it's a little bit of cheating because you're just getting straight into the person's mind a little instead of like all of the sort of them putting up like sort of a Wizard of Oz kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but like his story, I mean, genuinely, like I feel like are not the best vehicle for the ideas. And it's
Mm.
like what I'm hearing you say sort of is like work that gets people to really deal with these important issues, but like has to like lock them in somehow and get them to engage.
You kind of got to
Um,
side-eye it, right? Like you've got to,
yeah,
like in a perfect world, somebody's two-thirds of the way through the story and they're like, "Hey, wait a minute."
exactly.
But
You
but
like
but
you got
but
me. Yeah.
but right, but you want to get them far enough into it where they can see the perspective in the story without knowing that it's about them, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And then you're actually getting them to consider some like
right.
pretty highbrow, important issues that matter,
Yeah,
presumably like to their everyday life, in a real
right.
practical way, which people I think underestimate how much these sort of like philosophical, moral, ethical value systems like really are like very big to them. And,
Yeah.
it's good for us to think about this stuff and actually tackle it in a meaningful way. And I also like what you touched on it, like with the importance of it, because something I've like struggled with is sort of never feeling like I'm doing enough for the
Mm,
moment, right now, right, with what we've got going on in the country. Part of me is like, shouldn't I be doing whatever, I don't know, some sort of
mm,
activist kind of thing? And I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, people will tell me they're like, just what you do with the journal is great and it's
hmm.
important and it's valued and contributes a lot. But I was really glad to hear in like a recent interview with Heather Cox Richardson, that she noted like the importance of the arts and people
Mm,
who are involved in sort of like platforming the culture that's going on right now, in our current zeitgeist, and like that stuff really
yeah,
does matter and will matter.
yeah.
It makes it feel like we are doing something
Right.
important and valuable.
I just want to mention one thing. Like, I'm not trying to push a particular agenda. Like, I'm not trying to push a liberal or conservative agenda.
Mhm.
Although I certainly have my own views. But the thing that the magazine pushes is like, just think about what you think and think about the source of those values and think about the contradictions in them sometimes and think about. So it's very much about like just understand why you think what you think. But like
Mm-hmm.
what you think is not as important as figuring out why you think it. Right.
Yeah.
And so if somebody comes to like a really hard line conservative value, I'm like, that's cool. Like, do you know why you think that? Do you know what the ramifications are of it? Do you understand like what like I'm not trying to push an agenda except to think more critically instead of just being a marketing rep.
I love it. I've definitely, I email stuff to myself all the time, partly for my own Substack, stay
Yeah.
curious, but partly just like ideas in my head or reminders to myself.
Yeah.
And, like one of them not even too long ago was just a reminder to think about what you think about.
Right.
And just exactly what you're saying, it's like super important, like it's the same as Mary Oliver, sort of like, what you do with your time is sort of who you are. I mean, various
Hmm.
people have iterations of that,
Yeah.
and like, I think we're both sort of like living examples of it, like spending your day in practice of doing the work to put together a literary magazine.
Yeah.
That's what makes you who you are, right? It's your
Right.
actions. Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
I imagine there's a lot of people who work on literary magazines who feel that same way.
I imagine
The
that
ones
too.
who stick it out beyond that 3 year marker and they get the designation off a duotrope removed, like those are people who are doing it in spite of common sense, often.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've landed at a good place.
All right.
All
Well, hey,
right.
thank you for your time, and
Yeah,
hopefully
it's
anyone
been a
who
pleasure.
watches this will appreciate it. I'll just mention anyone can always email me if somebody's like, "Hey, what did you do with this? How did this work? I'm trying this thing, whatever." Uh, like again, there are no secrets at all. I'm happy to share everything I do.
I love it, Kobe. Thank you so much.
Cool.
It's been a joy.
Hey, thank you
Let's
so
catch up
much.
again sometime
All right.
soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
All right, take good care.